You don't have to make a ton of money to become financially independent. To be honest, you don't have to make a ton of money, right? And the good thing about real estate investing is passive. So you can still continue to work your 9 to 5 until you get to a situation where maybe you don't want to, maybe you don't have to work a 9 to 5, but you can still make money passively through real estate. So one of the first steps is figuring out what your monthly bills are. A lot of times we're just out here, we're just paying bills and living paycheck to paycheck. But I want you to be intentional about this. You have to be intentional to actually write down and figure out how much you need to live, how much your bills are every single month, like what's going in and what's going out, right? Until you do that, you'll just be kind of trying to wing it. But if you get intentional, it could be a little awkward, it could be uncomfortable, but this is the first step. Figure out what your monthly bills are, write everything down, and then once you look at that number, you'll know what you're working with, right? So with that being said, once you know what your bills are, your monthly bills are, then you just kind of reverse engineer your investment strategy, right? And when I say what I mean, that is you're going to get investment properties, right? Let's just say your bills are $5,000 a month. Your bills are $5,000 a month, right? So you know that that's like your bills, right? You don't have to make a ton of money to become financially independent. To be honest, you don't have to make a ton of money, right? And the good thing about real estate investing is passive. So you can still continue to work your 9 to 5 until you get to a situation where maybe you don't want to, maybe you don't have to work a 9 to 5, but you can still make money passively through real estate, right? So once you figure out your monthly bills, you reverse engineer that, right? So on a rental property, you might only make $500 a month on that property, right? $500 a month, that's cash flow. That's after everything, right? So once you make that $500 a month, you know that in order for you to meet all your obligations off of $5,000 and off a rental property, you'd have to have 10 of those properties. 10 of those properties could make you $5,000 a month. So that process could take a little bit of time. But this is what I want you to consider is once you get 1, 2, 3 properties, then what will happen is you'll start building equity in these properties. These properties will have equity. So maybe the first property that you got over the next 2, 3 years, it's gone up in value. And then the next property that you buy, you might can buy that property with cash, buy that property in cash. So what happens when you buy that property in cash, you don't have as big of a mortgage on that property. So now instead of your cash flow being 500, your cash flow would be $1,000 a month. I'm just using that as an example, but your cash flow will go up tremendously. It might even be $2,000 a month, right? So now you think about it, it'll take half amount of properties to make the same amount of money to get you to your monthly bills being paid by your rental property. So now you might only need 5 properties and you can get 5 properties pretty quickly. It doesn't take long, right? So this whole real estate game is not only about the cash flow, it's about the appreciation. That property appreciates over time and you can use those funds to buy more properties and build more wealth, right? So kind of once you get to that point, the next thing I want you to do is figure out your freedom number, your freedom number. Your freedom number is the number that's going to exceed your bills and the number that makes you comfortable with what you have coming in. When you got passive income coming in, paying down your expenses, you got that passive, at least $5,000 coming in. So you might say, hey, my freedom number, if I could get all my bills paid and I could have $2,500 coming in each month free, right? Expense free. So basically $7,500 and your bills are only $5,000. That could be your freedom number, right? So once you figure out that freedom number, then we just reverse engineer it. You figure out how many more properties you need. You can only might be 3 properties, right? Might be 2 properties, might be 5 properties, right? But if you don't figure it out, you won't know. Well, as you're walking through this process, you'll know, what your monthly expenses are. You'll know how to get enough properties for that. And then once you figure out what your freedom number is, you get that amount of properties, right? So once you get the amount of properties that are going to meet all your obligations and you get that amount of properties that are going to exceed your obligations, that is your freedom number. Everybody's number is different, right? Some people might say, hey, if I have an extra $1,500 a month free and clear, I'm good. If I have an extra $10,000 a month, I'm good. Whatever that is, you have to figure it out. And then you can become financially independent through real estate investing. You'll be well on your way, but you got to start with the basics. You got to figure out what your monthly bills are and then work from there. Thanks for tuning in, Wealth Builders. I'll be dropping new content every week. So make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell. I'll see you on the next one.